They mocked him the second he stepped through the polished glass doors of the factory he had built with his own hands, boots tracking dried mud across a floor to clean to remember sweat, to polished to honor the hands that bled to create it. And though his back was bent from decades in the fields, and his overalls stained with oil and dust, he stood taller than any man in that sterile showroom, especially the suited executive who greeted him with a smirk too wide to be respectful, and a handshake so limp it could have belonged to a man who never held a tool in his life. And as the old farmer's eyes scanned the factory floor now filled with gleaming red tractors, digital interfaces, holographic product maps, and fresh-faced engineers tapping away at tablets they didn't, T recognized him, not really, not as the founder, not as the man who once welded chassis under a leaking tin roof in winter just to meet an order that saved them from foreclosure, not as the man who mortgaged his farm to start the company when the banks laughed in his face and his neighbors called him a fool, because now, to them, he was just a dirty, out-of-place relic who didn't belong in the age of technology. But what they didn't know, what the cameras didn't show, and the PR brochures never printed, was that every blueprint, every engine curve, every bold design was his creation, drawn by callous fingers in the quiet of sleepless nights after long harvests, inspired by a simple wish that farmers like him would never again have to break their backs with shovels and dreams that never left the dirt. And yet here he stood, invisible in his own house, while the man in the black suit, imported cologne thick in the air, paraded investors through the factory, boasting of a global merger that would outsource production, cut local jobs, and stamp the company's name onto machines made thousands of miles away by people who had never once felt the sting of blisters or the weight of failure on a frostbitten morning. And the farmer clenched his jaw as he watched one of the new models malfunction, a warning light blinking red, and saw the panic in a junior engineer's face as he tapped furiously at his screen, and the suit laughed it off, saying, "It's just a firmware bug," not knowing that the man standing just a few feet away had designed that engine's fail-safe system from scratch and could fix it blindfolded with nothing but a wrench and instinct. Because real engineering lives in the bones, not in code. And then, just as he turned to leave, a young technician brushed past him, nearly knocking him over, muttering, "Watch it, old man." And the farmer said nothing, only walked forward toward the wall where the company's history timeline was mounted like a museum. Peace, a life frozen in glass. And he stopped at the first photo, the grainy image of a young man standing barefoot beside a rusted tractor, a welding torch in one hand, the other around a smiling child, and he stared at it for so long that the floor manager, an older woman with gray streaks in her braid, approached and whispered, "Is it really you?" And when he nodded, her eyes filled with tears, because she remembered she had worked beside him for 25 years before being quietly demoted when the new board took over, and the whisper spread like fire through the factory. "He's back," and one by one, the older workers turned their heads, their hands pausing mid-task, the rhythm of the factory slowing, faltering, until even the investors noticed and the suit turned sharply, marching toward him, voice laced with arrogance, saying, "Can I help you with something?" And the farmer, calm as ever, replied, "Just wanted to see how my factory was doing." And the suit laughed, genuinely confused, asking, "Your factory?" And the farmer simply walked past him, toward the line of prototypes, placing his hand on the hood of the newest tractor, and the machine, built with the same foundational software he had developed years ago, responded to his touch. Lights flickering to life, engine humming softly, and the crowd gasped as it moved slightly forward, despite not being connected to any console. Because only one man knew the hidden command, the emergency override built into the heart of every Lindner series model. And now the whispers turned into murmurs, and then into stunned silence as workers gathered, engineers dropped tools, and the factory seemed to breathe again for the first time in years. And when the farmer turned around, holding up a worn piece of paper, the original deed to the factory, co-signed by the town's mayor and local union, granting him permanent authority over all operations unless a public vote removed him. A clause so old the new board hadn't even known it existed, gasps broke out, the suit's face drained of color, and the farmer stepped up onto a crate, voice rising not with volume, but with truth, saying, "This place was never meant to be a monument to greed. It was meant to be a lifeline, a place where hard hands could build hope, not just machines." And as the cameras rolled and reporters swarmed in, tipped off by someone who believed the world needed to see this moment, the story exploded across headlines. Founder reclaims factory from greedy executives. Humble farmer destroys outsourcing deal. Lindner legacy revived, and within days, the board was forced to resign. The outsourcing plans dissolved, and the factory renamed Lindner Works to honor the man who knelt in mud, to build what no degree could teach. And in the weeks that followed, jobs returned, wages increased, apprenticeships reopened for local youth, and the farmer who still wore his old overalls and refused an offer spent his days walking the floor, teaching the next generation what no book could. That dignity is not in wealth, but in the work we do. And though many came offering to buy the factory for millions, he turned every offer down, saying, "It's not for sale, it's for service." And late at night, when the last lights dimmed and the machines slept, you could still find him polishing the original tractor in the back, the one from the photo. Engine rusted, but spirit alive, whispering to it like an old friend. Because in a world that tried to erase him, he had written his story in steel, and the world finally remembered his name.